This is the gospel according to St. Luke, the 16th chapter. Then Jesus said to the disciples, "There was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summons him and said to him, 'What is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer.' Then the manager said to himself, 'What will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I've decided what to do so that when I am dismissed as the manager, people may welcome me into their homes.' So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil.' He said to him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. Then he asked another, 'And how much do you owe?' He replied, 100 containers of wheat.' He said to him, 'Take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of the light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into eternal homes. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much, and whoever is dishonest in very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust you to true riches? And if you've not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? For no slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth." This is the gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. So what if I told you this morning that by hearing the words that I say, that I'm saying to you, in the hearing of them, you could be wealthy? Anybody interested? By hearing the words I say today, it could make you a wealthy person. So if you're interested, let's do this. How much money, like net worth, would you say a person has to have to be wealthy, to be rich? Okay, think about a number, a specific number, and then whisper that to your neighbor. Tell them what you think and what they think that number is. Yeah, I'm serious. Do that. Okay. The U.S. Census Bureau asked that question to Americans, and it came to this. The magic number was a net worth of $2.4 million. So if you have $2.4 million, raise your hand. No. You are wealthy, according to the Census Bureau. And that's 30 times what the average American has. Think about that, how much you have, times it by 30, and that would be your idea of wealth, what wealth is. That's in America. In the rest of the world, you have to remember that half of the world, which is 3.4 billion people, which I can hardly even understand that number, there are that many people who make less than $2.50 a day. That's what they live on. So I'm not very good in math, but if you were to say, how much would that add up to in a year? It's about $900 and some dollars. And they would look at the amount of money we make. It would be a couple thousand times what we as average Americans make here in the United States. So congratulations, you're wealthy. See? So my question is today, because there's been a lot of these lately, why does Jesus talk about money and wealth so much? I don't make these things up. I get them right from Scripture. Just so you know, since I was into statistics today, there are 2,350 times in the Bible where wealth and money and the use of it is mentioned. With Jesus, out of his 40 parables, each of them tries to tell something different. 11 of them are about money and wealth. So I would say Jesus is interested in wealth, in our wealth. But the question then remains, why so much on this topic? Well, let's look at today's scripture. There's a story about a master and his manager. And his manager goes off and does this shrewd, almost dishonest type of getting his money back. And so he commends him for being loyal to him, but then he later condemns him for doing it in a dishonest way. Now, I don't know too much about the imagery of slave and master type of understanding, so I read a book by Howard Thurman, and I'll give you the book later, but here's how he explains it. He says that the number one priority for a slave is loyalty to the master. Loyalty to the master. So if that manager were to go out and do something a little shady or dishonest, as long as it was for his master, the master would overlook it. That's the understanding of the slave and master relationship. Jesus condemns the dishonest method by which he gets his money back for his master, but he commends the manager's loyalty. And the scripture said today, you cannot serve two masters, both God and wealth. So why is Jesus so concerned about our relationship with wealth? Well, the reason is it is the number one obstacle in our relationship to God. It's our number one obstacle in our relationship to God. For me personally, it's always been a struggle, and I know how it is. We had 3 boys, and when we were raising them, we had a plaque on our wall that said faith, family, and football, right? And that was the idea of our priorities, faith, family, and football. But having the boys in all these sports activities costs money, right? I had one in hockey. We traveled all the time. I had 2 that play AAU basketball during the summer. We traveled all the time. Every place you go, you have to pay. Did you know I talked to somebody the other day who told me their grandson, I won't tell you where it is, but went to get new hockey skates at Shields, $900. $900, $250 for a stick. I'm just saying. The biggest obstacle in our way is our wealth. And I can say at times when I had to pay so much money for our kids, that was turned upside down, right? So what do we do with this relationship that we have? If we claim that God is first in our life, if we claim to be loyal to God, the highest thing, then ought our wealth reflect that? Jesus says in Matthew 15:8, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. These people he calls hypocrites. So how do we manage this relationship between God and our relationship with money? Well, there's a few things. In this parable, Jesus says 3 things. First, he's warning us about our wealth. It's going to be a struggle. When you have wealth, it's going to be a struggle to manage that. The second thing he says is it's an obstacle to your relationship with God. And the third thing he says is just be honest. Be honest with our life and admit that it's a struggle, and it always will be. So, are we wealthy? Well, maybe in America you don't have millions of dollars, but to the world, we are wealthy. But all that we have Scripture says, comes from God. Everything we have is a gift from God, and God is asking us to be good managers, to manage that. He also says in Scripture this term manager is often called a steward. So in the church, you always, this time of year, right? Stewardship, right? We hear this word. That comes from that word manager. It's the same word. But we've just not done justice in how we've done stewardship, and I'll tell you why. Usually each fall, I don't know if it's like this here, okay, but in the almost 30 years that I've been a pastor, it's this way in other places. Fall comes, and we do this little dog and pony show, and somebody comes up, and they talk about stewardship, or have you ever done the pink flamingo thing, where you go and you put flamingos on everybody's yard, and you have to pay to get them off? Okay, so we have this program that we call stewardship. Or we see it as a particular aspect that we just do every year. It's just this little thing that we do that has to do with money. But stewardship is not a program. It is not a particular aspect of our life. It is the whole of the Christian life. It is the management of everything, of the land and the sky, the animals, the plants, our finance. It's everything. And it's not just in the fall. And it's not just in church. It's with everything that God has given us. But in the midst of it, Jesus says, to be a good steward, the key is that loyalty to the master is the number one priority. Loyalty to God is the number one priority. So we have wealth. We also have a relationship with God who is calling us to manage that wealth. And that's why we give to the church. However, if we feel that the church is not being a good manager of the wealth that's given, then to be loyal to God, maybe that money should go someplace else. If the church is not managing it, to be a loyal manager to God, we need to find the place that is most worthy. So, question today, how are we doing as managers of God's wealth here at Christ the King? Okay, we're going to do letter grades. No, I'm just kidding. How are we doing? Are we giving what we should? Are we giving as much as we could? My wife works at Lincoln Elementary School, and I think you know where that is, in Fargo here. And they have a variety of kids there, all different colors, shapes, and sizes from all different backgrounds. She particularly works with kids who struggle at home. And she'll come home and tell me stories about a particular boy who sleeps on the floor because they only have one bed at their house. Tell me stories about, oh, how's your dad? Oh, yeah, we go see him at the prison, right? These are poverty people. And so this week, they had a little fundraiser. They did, like we do for Relay for Life, they had a walk-a-thon. So they sent a little note home with all the kids, and it asked the parents to sponsor those children per lap. You know how it goes. So you pay so much. Every child came back with some money. Even the kids whose dads are in prison, even the kids who sleep on the floor, they came with some money. In one day, they raised $16,000. Now, I think that's pretty good. We all could give more money, whether it's $2.50 or $16,000. But the question is, it's a spiritual question. The question is this: do we believe that God is here in this place working? Do we actually believe that at Christ the King, it's worth giving our wealth from God to this place? Because if it's not, then to be good, loyal managers, we should give it someplace else. So that's my question. You have to ask yourself, do you believe that Christ the King is worth what God has given you? With that said, I do. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that. But that's just me. I did, however, talk to 3 people this last week, 3 people who said they believe that too. They believe that God is working in this place. So that's 4 people. Jesus says, wherever there are 2 or more gathered, I am there with you. So there's 4 of us so far. But it's not going to be like it was in 1958 or 1988 or 2018. It's going to be different. The method is going to be different. The spirit is the same. But can we trust that God will work in this place by us putting our finances here? 4 of us. Is there anybody else that believes too? Is there anybody here who believes that God is working in this place and this place is worth you sharing your finances? If there's anybody that wants to join the 4 of us, stand.